Hey guys, so gonna be talking about this week's episode of Gifted with my little friend here. And this episode was Extreme Measures. Again, just giving a brief summary and my personal highlights. This episode, Extreme Measures, again, as we see another X in the title, we have Eclipse revisiting his past with the underworld. We have Reed and Sage, who are studying the Central Services files, which again very much reminds me of elements from the 90s animated series Night of the Sentinels, and files of the being studied by the X-Men and so on. And Reed, who learns some things about Wes, and he's concerned. And, as Eclipse is getting back into his old life, we see he has a pendant in the shape of a Grim Reaper, the patron saint of death, which I really enjoyed because this is a real world element that, for that culture in the underworld, that the death is very important to the underworld, especially images of death in a wedding dress, is just a sort of cult that exists in the underworld for that culture. And I like that it's, including this real world element. It's not doing anything disrespectful. It's just showing, very briefly, something that exists today, that is part of that culture in the criminal underworld. And, so I really enjoyed that. And we get to see how Central Services selects mutants, and how, what they're doing with them, and where they're sending them, and so on. We also get to see how Campbell is using mutants, and he's using them in certain ways that, again, is very much a precursor to the Reavers in Logan. I'm really enjoying the pre-Logan atmosphere of this series. So there's that element, and we see here that Caitlin is trying to teach kids, but she has limited means. Basically, because she only has selected books and selected material at her disposal, and she's trying to give them a normal teaching, and teaching environment. But she's only going with what the best she has on hand, and she's. I like that she's talking about botany and makeup and genetic makeup, and how things are built up, because that really plays into how mutants are, they're the way they are, because they're genetic makeup, and she's using botany, but I found that just very slight undertones of what mutants are, because of their genes and so on, that they have these abilities and so on. It wasn't overt or anything, but I thought that was a little subtle hint there, at least in my view. And I like that Reed and Caitlin are acting like concerned parents here. I really enjoy the family elements of this series, that it's about family, that Reed changes because of his family and so on, and that they are acting like concerned parents, that Reed is concerned about a boy that his daughter is interested in, and within the confines of this new setting that they're in, and that the fact that it's a mutant setting, and what he discovers is just another element of it. But it's still the basics of mom and dad worrying about a daughter going with this guy, and being concerned parents about that. I enjoyed that. And we get to see Thunderbird go after Blink and use his tracking abilities and a little bit of his strength. And we find a little bit more about Blink here, and some how she decides to go back to the underground. Again, I'm not give too much details or spoilers. I realize I'm posting this a few days after the episode, but I like to keep it as limited spoilers as possible. But anyways, I enjoyed the Thunderbird and Blink moments and what happens there. I thought it was very sad and tragic. And we see how Jace is threatened by the DEOJ, and how the woman from the DEOJ is threatening him and threatening to shut him down. And I really enjoyed how she was dealt with. Granted, my one nitpick here is sometimes the mutant abilities are the necessity of the episode, that they're convenient for the episode. We kind of saw that with last episode with Wes's powers, that they were awfully convenient for the storyline and plot. And the mutants for this particular scene, I thought was very much convenient for the plot. So that's kind of my nitpick there. But anyways, I did enjoy that again. Jace, because he's going through losing his daughter again, and all that trauma, that he's being pushed to extremes, and he wants to deal with the mutants and get it done with. And in order to do that, he has to go beyond his comfort zone and deal with people he does not want to deal with, i.e., Campbell and everything he represents. Because Jace is clearly concerned about this guy and what he's doing, and he's very uncomfortable with the mutants that Campbell has in his thrall, as it were. And this series as yet has not, gone too deep with how that is achieved, but we're gonna see. I'm sure at some point. But again, I like that he's being forced to extremes, but he's uncomfortable with the extremes he has to go to. But in order to get it done, he feels this is the only way. And at the same moment, we have Eclipse, who's also, because he wanted to save Polaris, was forced to extremes, and now he has to pay that price for that, and getting back with the underworld, and what he now has to do in order to fulfill favors that were called in, and getting back into that old world, and how he was at that time, and so on. I really enjoyed that sort of parallel. And finally, we get a reference to Trask Industries. And I like that it was indeed a little bit of reference to Days of Future Past. To a certain degree, it didn't go too far, but it did mention it. And I believe Reed said his old man, his father, worked for them, and so I kind of like that element. That essentially, Reed grew up with someone who dealt with a company that was trying to, take care of mutants, and he was a lawyer that was imprisoning mutants, and so now he's kind of trying to make amends for that. Anyways, that's just my personal highlights for this episode. I watch these episodes online, streaming on the Fox website, and because of that, I usually watch the episode the day after it airs. So usually I watch them Tuesdays. Uploading these videos is just whenever I can. And again, that's just something I want to do because I really love this show. This is my 5th favorite superhero show. As mentioned before, I really enjoyed Arrow and Supergirl, and Flash, these three are my shows, and Gifted has to be added as the fourth. I am watching and enjoying Lessons, but as I constantly complain, sometimes it gets to be a little messy. The recent episode was kind of crazy, but whatever. But anyways, I really enjoyed Gifted, and I hope it continues. I as yet have not seen Legion. Hopefully it'll eventually come on Netflix so I can watch it and see if there's any connection between these shows. And if any of you, a few of you that happen to be watching these, happen to see connections, please comment below. Anyways, hope you've enjoyed this little video and my little shirt and friend here. See you guys later.